Orson Welles as H.G. Wells. So, we had a pipe burst outside. Now I have no running water. Luckily, it's not my problem. It's the city's problem. But, like, sitting here, I'm like, I hear the pipes rattling around upstairs. I'm like, fuck me running, dude. Really? Not a good time for that. And sure as shit, I'm like, oh, fuck. You know, I had to check under the house and all that stuff. And, no, it's fine. It was someone down the road here had a pipe burst under their driveway, of all things, right? So there's water over the road and everything, but not so much that you can't drive, but, you know, just enough to go, well, fuck. You probably can't let that go on for too long before you have to fix it, right? But other than that, today's been all right. I don't know how helpful it is or not. Like, I don't want to spoil the ending, and it's not much of a surprise. But like writing this book or whatever chapters and all that stuff, I feel like it's a good, like, especially since no one's here, you know, and the shit's basically just recorded to YouTube for documentation purposes. You know what I mean? But I got another, writing a chapter a day. I guess it's a chapter. I don't fucking know. Let's see how many words is a book supposed to be first and foremost, right? Character. Does this thing tell us? There is. How many characters is a book? No, a novel is about 10 to 20 characters. Not like that, dipshit. Like letters. Characters as in like alphanumeric. Roughly 400,000. It says a standard adult novel around 80,000 words typically contains about 400 to 480,000 characters, and we're at, oh Christ, dude, never mind. We're 28,000 so far. I guess I have a lot to say at some point in time. I'm not gonna do these quests, dude. This shit's so lame. The reason why I didn't finish all this shit last time was, quests are fucking lame, basically. But having an epic flying mount is helpful when you do it, but I just think that doing quests, it seems like it's more fun to watch someone. Like, how could it possibly be any fun? How could it possibly be fun? There's a quest here that I cannot seem to ever find. Any help? Anybody? Suggestions from the peanut gallery? Oh, look at that. Oh, look at me. We got a 5-man quest that I'm not going to be able to do here. The image of Commander Amir. You're right. Let me check your shoes. You're right. Let that guy on an airplane. Ethereum transponder Zeta wants you to use the Protectorate disruptor to bring down the World Trade. What the fuck quest is this? What the fuck type of quest is this? Then destroy Nexus King Sheladar. Yeah, dude, the Saudis and those guys always fighting about something, isn't it? I guess I'm supposed to do this. Fuck me, running. It's a 5-man quest. I'm not gonna be able to do it. And he gave me a Protectorate disruptor. This thing looks like a gnomish death ray. For those who are familiar with the gnomish death rays. Go look up old school PvP videos. They were a delight for level 60 PvP, if I remember correctly. Oh, look at these guys. Oh, look, we've caught a genuine group of fucking people 7-boxing here. can't say that I'm not gonna enjoy doing this. I can't say I'll fucking kill the guy either, but oh fuck, he's actually playing. Oh my god, guy. I know, but I want to kill all your mages and stuff. Oh, fucking, there's another guy?
That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
Fucking another mage. You're like, I'm gonna do it.
That's still recharging.
I'm just hoping to AoE these guys down. Come on, dude. It's too much fun. I never get to see. It's like finding a 7-foot tall guy at the grocery store. I could have planned that better, though. I thought the guy was AFK. I didn't realize he was actually, like, I thought it was a bot entirely, not just some guy 7-boxing all of his mages, which I thought they fucking made that against the fucking internet. I thought you weren't allowed to do that. I'm like, what the fuck is this? To fucking take an Ambien or something? There's something that drew me to this area. I'm like, it's a quest, right? Like, oh, come on now. I'm already about to jump ship on this idea just because. But I try to find the fucking king of that pack of mages there. Try to kill it, and that way the rest of them don't know what they're doing. But all they had to do was fire blast me once. It's like my entire health bar. I thought the guy was AFK or like a bot. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fucking just AoE these guys down, right? Like lemmings, and it turns out no, he was actually there. Fucking, how many that was, like 5 or 6. So this chapter, whether it's as interesting as I don't know, man. Like whatever people want to find interesting or not, but was my first Fioe, my first Gallivant, however you say it, or because I can't pronounce it, into automation years and years ago, and how you were able to use it to basically trick Yahoo into paying you for no reason, basically, right? Because they didn't have at first they didn't have well, they had a limit on, like, they had Yahoo ads, right? So you could go to a website, or you could set your own website up and apply for Yahoo ads. I believe it was Yahoo. And you would get paid like 0.004 cents per click, or 0.04, like 4 cents, or 4/10 of a cent or whatever per click you got on the ads. And they had like a whole bunch of, like, not necessarily publicized conditions as to, like, okay, well, you can only click the ad to try and make it as organic as possible. They were like, you can only click 4 ads per, was it 8 hours? Or 6 hours, right? It was like every 6 hours you could only click it 4 times, right? Per IP address. Well, at the time, I didn't know what an IP address was, right? And I was only like 8 or 9 years old. And I didn't know what an IP address was, but that was like all part of the learning experience and process during all this was interesting, because like I got to discover for the first time like automation altogether. Like that you could trick your not say trick, but you could use your computer in a way like to like automate tasks and get it to basically work for you while you weren't there, which was like the ultimate goal. So I had a friend who I always say, very suspiciously, some fucking kid that was in like the 7th or 8th grade, he said, that lived in Arizona. Let's see my fat ass anyway. Had this kid that lived in Arizona, and he was like, yeah, man, I have to feel like that these were all like just some fucking creepy fucking Japanese perv that was just like, but they never came across that way. But the reason why, and I'll get to it later, why it's always suspicious to me that these people just show up never to be seen again, right, in my life, and they always have these like kind of like, they're always like a missing link to some bigger picture, you know what I mean? But so he had a website, right, and I didn't necessarily know how to do like developing like website stuff then, right? I still really don't know much how to do about it, right? More or less HTML basic kind of like WYSIWYG point and click kind of shit, nothing fancy. But he had a website set up, and he came to me at one point in time, and he's like, "Hey man, you know, like whatever it was, his lawn care business. Yeah, it was an attempt to look like a legitimate website that had a legitimate purpose at first, and then we discovered that you could abandon that quest. That you could click the ads yourself and get a certain amount, like you could get the fucking 12 cents or whatever, 1.2 cents, you get like 4 cents a day altogether, 4 or 5 cents per person, right? And I was obsessed with the fucking idea. He was more or less like, okay, well, how do you help me get the word out about my website, and how do we get people to click these ads, right? And that's all it was. So I spent most of my time trying to come up with ways to do it, like pretending to be like an advertising agency, like some elaborate fucking Three Stooges rigmarole. I tried to convince these people. So I'd go like spam chat rooms, like you know, like the shit you see today though, where people are like miracle mineral solution and blah blah blah, and the pseudoscience hyperdimensional physics people that make no sense and all that stuff I've seen videos about earlier. But yeah, I was like, yeah, go to this website and blah, you know, be sure to read through, click the ads, support the fucking blah blah blah. We're fucking an advertising agency. I always had like some made up story, just to try and get people to click the ads, right? I'm like, well, that wasn't really working. The click-through rate was really low. Like the turnover, you know, you couldn't really get a whole lot of people to participate because it was just basically me spamming chat rooms trying to get people to do it. But what I discovered later on is that I kind of like, let's say, like reverse engineered, as if I took like a goddamn magnifying glass to do it or anything, but just pieced together through trial and error, like reverse engineered how the pay algorithm worked for their ad system, which was like the amount that you had to click, the amount that you could, at what point there was a drop off, at what point did they completely nullify your you patronizing a link. Same guy from yesterday. And I determined that like the amount that I mentioned earlier, best I can recall, that's what it was, like a few cents here and there basically. And the limit was, you know, only 4 times a day, 4 clicks per time, you know, so really you can only about a couple pennies a day per person. And I'm like, well, what the fuck, you know, like, what are the limitations here? And after combing through some of this shit a little bit more, I determined that the limitation at the time, all they had was not proxies, but was based on IP traffic. They had no other indicators or like no other prohibiting factor. So like if you were to patronize a link 4 times with your IP address, it would essentially be exhausted for 4 or for 6 hours or whatever. And in 6 hours you could do it again. You could do that 4 times a day, you know. And then I discovered trial and error, like, well, the only thing that they monitor as far as ad dollars are concerned is actually at the time, I don't know what it is now, but it's IP address. Unique traffic was consistent with one IP address. So not necessarily knowing what all that shit was at the time, like what an IP address was, what I likened it to is essentially like the virtual address for like your computer as if your home address is for your home, right? So I began researching ways on like how do you change that? Is there ways to mask it? Is there ways to change it? And sure as shit there was. You know, I figured out this thing called proxies, which this is all like trivial now, but at the time it was like learning a whole new thing for me. Learned proxies, right? And I found these proxy lists online. There's like 4 or 10,000. I guess I got them off LimeWire or Kazaa or whatever. IRC, whatever file share program website was available at the time. I don't think all that other shit existed yet, more than likely, but you could find like these lists of like 4 to 10,000 proxies, SOX 4 and 5 or whatever the standard was at the time. And you could basically find an extension before browser extensions were like even a thing really, that allowed you to upload a text-based proxy list to the extension, and then that would allow you to basically just to scroll through the proxies and change your address on command, basically, right? And having discovered that, I'm like, oh, I wonder if that works, man. You know, trial and error. So I go to the website and like, okay, well, just report to me the web traffic the very next day, right? So I spent like the next day or two, like 12 hours or so the next day, just click, change proxy, click, 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 change proxy. He's like, yeah, our fucking web traffic's up a whole shitload, right? This imaginary kid, probably, that lives in Arizona at the time. And I'm like, oh, cool, you know, like, well, substantially, like, and I found out, like, through trial and error, I'm like, okay, so it is dependent entirely upon the proxies. You can click 4 links every 6 hours, so that makes 4, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 16 clicks a day at anywhere between 4/10 of a cent to 4 cents a click. You know, I'm like, well, shit, man, like, yeah, no, like, for a kid in elementary school still, I'm sitting there thinking, like, well, I wasn't getting paid for any of this. I was more or less doing it to try and like the guy who had the website was. I wasn't. But I more or less, like a video game, wanted to try and kind of like prove myself that I knew that I could figure this kind of thing out, right? And after that was said and done, I went to like dabbled it with it for a while. Kind of not, let's say, like lost interest, but went to do something else, prove my point. But then I discovered AutoIt, which is like it's like an old school. It's not like a programming language. I mean, it is kind of, but it's not like in a constructive sense. Like you can't necessarily make like a standalone program that does stuff. Basically, it's designed specific. It's a programming language designed specifically to automate tasks. You know, point and click, find fields, fill fields with your keyboard. You know, and all that kind of shit, right? Get hex data as you fucking mouse over things, whatever. Check the state of the cursor and all that. And I discovered, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know. Started researching more about it online, and I'm like, how do I have this, like, basically my obsession from that point forward was how do I get this computer to make me money while I'm not there? You know what I mean? So I went to different like gaming platforms and stuff at the time, like PopCap Gaming. There were some other ones, and I remember the name eventually, but they had a system where like if you play their game and you get a top score, then you're entered to win like $10,000 cash prizes and cruises and all this shit, and like you get shit in the mail and they send you fucking beer koozies and all that other stuff. And so I wrote my first AutoIt script when I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old to play a basketball game on one of these websites where they had this competition. There was like the best score out of each round plus cumulative score for the day put you in the drawing every month or whatever. And it was random chance after that or whatever. You get a drawing per time. You got a certain score or whatever. So I played this like basketball game like nonstop, and then I wrote a script that actually played it for me, so I could just like sit on my ass and do nothing all day, while it like played like super good and fucking kept making all the 3-pointers and all that stuff, and kept entering me to win these drawings. And I'm like, but you know, and I come to find out like at the time probably, not to say it was a scam, but I guess I never won anything from it. You would think, like, based on the fact that there's no other chance in hell that anybody else is playing this game as much as me and getting a high score as I did. So I'm like, well, whatever, you know. Probably somewhere in the fine details there that like, oh, well, you know, you're not really, you know, we don't have to pick a winner every time. We just have to say we're going to or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's kind of gay, you know, super gay. But anyway, it was proof of concept, like it worked, right? So this thing sat there and played this video game for me, which could seemingly yield, at least at some point in time, real-life cash rewards prizes and that kind of thing. So I was like, that was proof of concept, which is, you know, as much as I wanted as much as I wanted to retire from doing this shit, you know, that wasn't necessarily the ultimate. It would be the ultimate goal, but not the immediate goal. The immediate goal was to prove that it was possible. So I let the thing sit there and play and run for days on end, right? And yeah, I proved my point. It worked, you know. And then I found another game that was online that was it had like a Minesweeper. If you're familiar with the game on Microsoft, the Minesweeper game where you click through and you like it tells you what was like Minesweeper. Only every time you clicked a box, it would reveal a prize. You know what I mean? The thing is that like every pixel on your screen was a box, and you had to like go through and like very rarely there was prizes involved, but there like some of the prizes it was a website designed to give away free cards online. It had Pokemon cards, baseball cards, Magic the Gathering, and like you could probably, I guess, win cash and all that other stuff too. But it looked like a Minesweeper game. So I wrote a program to, like while I was asleep, to go through the game and click every square and then accept, you know, over and over again until it had basically comb through the entire map. And at some point in time, I actually won like one of these super rare Pokemon cards that the website was giving away. And the fucking shit kicker though was that it required me to like print something out. My parents didn't have a printer. Plus, I'd have to get my parents to go to the store to get stamps, to print the receipt, and then to mail it to the company and all this stuff. But I'm like, well, either way, pretty cool. It works. Proof of concept. As much as I wish I could have had it, was like a rare Mewtwo or something. And some promotional rare Mewtwo or something, right? And I'm like, well, cool. How do I get this all to work with the goddamn proxy thing, right? So I set up a web browser with the appropriate browser extension, and then I wrote a script that actually would click the links 4 times, cycle to a new proxy, close the web browser and all that shit, refresh the web browser or whatever, and then click the links again, switch proxies. And by like the end of like the first week or whatever, the kid had like $1,700. The kid had like $1,700, right? He's like in the 7th grade, and he's like very bizarre, but he's like yeah, he made like 2 weeks worth, so he had like $3,500 or whatever. And Yahoo had to nerf the fucking algorithm. They fucking nerfed the algorithm at the time to not pay us because they figured out what I was doing. And he had made his like $3,500, and suddenly he's like, yeah, what I haven't told you is I've got like this really strange mystery illness apparently. He said, he's like, I got this disease where I chronically vomit and puke and throw up all the time. I'm like, yeah, you didn't tell me that. It's kind of gross. He's like, yeah, like I'll never be able to work again. And my parents said I don't have to go to school anymore. I shit you not. I'm like, what the fuck, really? You know, and the kid just disappeared out of the blue. I'm like, what was all that about? So I've come to the conclusion that was not some little kid, dude. It was some old man pretending to be a little kid and just fucking around with me on the internet. You know, he never came across as a creep or anything, but I don't believe that it was a 7th grade kid now. And I'm thinking about it as I'm older. I'm like, because that's not the only person in my life that has just like gotten paid somehow and suddenly come down with like some mystery illness and has to like either die or disappear. You know what I mean? Not the only person in my life. It's actually happened a few times in my life, you know. So at the time though, I had no clue what the fuck it was about. But he like emphasis on the fact that he's like, yeah, I never have to work ever again. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, well, I guess, no, not cool. But I'm like, the conclusion that I came to is that he figured out that the automation thing, that he'd figured out, I guess, a way or whatever, that like he'd taken the thing and had figured out a way to use it for himself. I don't know what, but emphasis on the fact, like he was like pretty adamant about the fact that he's like, yeah, I never have to work ever again. I'm like, oh, cool. I think he was trying to give me a hint, like, without telling me the answer, like, yeah, keep doing this kind of thing. You'll figure it out eventually, right? You probably might not ever have to work again either. I'm like, oh, cool. He didn't say that part, but that was like the extent of it. That's like the next chapter, and then the next thing after this is me getting involved with these hackers online and fucking card skimming and phishing and all that shit. But I'm not gonna name names. I'm gonna give them fucking fake names and all that stuff. But God only knows. Like, you can't get in trouble for this shit now. This shit was 30 years ago or like 25 years ago or whatever. But that was like my first gallivant, because I can't say foyer into automation, right? They got to the point where fucking Yahoo had to nerf the fucking pay algorithm for it. Right. And this was before VPNs and all that stuff, so proxies work similar. I can't honestly tell you now like what the fundamental difference between a proxy and a VPN is. I know they both mask your IP address in some way, shape, or form. The proxy list though was hit and miss, so you would have like a list of like 10,000 proxies, and you might get like 3 or 4 that don't connect at all, and then one that does, and then, you know, it didn't really matter. The script didn't have a way to detect if it did or didn't work because it was kind of rudimentary and all that stuff, but I managed to make the kid a few $1,000s, and suddenly he comes down with some mystery illness and fucking disappears. I'm like, yeah, story of my life. Story of my fucking life, dude. It's not the 4th time that's happened, right? It isn't. So I say, like, unapologetically, if you ever come to me and tell me, like, you know that guy that you just saw that was like perfectly healthy the day just died out of the middle of nowhere, and like after he just made a whole bunch of money or something, I'm like, I just, please, if I don't believe you, you know, it's not because I'm insensitive. It's because people have been doing this shit to me for like forever now, you know. fuck's sakes, man. Sitting here in my goddamn PvE gear fighting something, right? I saw him starfire me. I could have done something sooner, but did that guy get him? All these fucking people are here, guy. Yeah, I see that. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, but that's not the first time that's happened, dude. Like, say honestly, 4 times in my life that's happened. Someone just like getting paid and mysteriously dying right thereafter. 4 or 5 times now, actually. Not thinking about it. That was the first time any of that sort of things happened. So when I tell you, like, I can't prove that these people, right, but they've been doing this shit with me for a while. Like, I'm not making it up, you know what I mean? I'm not delusional. Like, these people have essentially been there since day one, doing this kind of shit with me, you know what I mean? So when I tell you, like, this isn't my first rodeo, I'm not just saying that, you know. I've been doing this shit for fucking ever. Running in and bumping into these people, various circles and all that. Like I say, I'm well watched, that's all. Looked over, I guess. They don't help me ever, though. That's the thing. Like, I have to figure all this shit out on my own, but I guess monitored would be a better word. I figured it'd make an interesting book. All of it when it's all put together. And I can get into, like, the next couple chapters will be card skimming, phishing, Trojans, embedding viruses into things, backdoors, just, you know, throughout my, like, from, like, ages of 10 to 12 and 14 and all that stuff when I learned how to do all that kind of thing. Shit that I could have honed and gotten much better at doing it since then, but I chose to kind of step away from it because I always got to this point where I was like, I push it until I'm, like, right there on the brink of getting, like, and this is when I was younger, so, like, this isn't a pattern of behavior that I have now. At the time, though, knowing that, like, I couldn't get in trouble for it, and I did want to do it and wanted to learn how to do this shit, I always got to that point where, like, well, it's on the brink, on the cusp of, like, law getting involved. I would fucking take a break for a while and step away. And, so I'm gonna, you know, this is all past the statute of limitations. Plus, I was a kid anyway, so it doesn't really matter. If you ever seen Trailer Park Boys, right? So that being said, I think it'll make an interesting, like, maybe 1/4 of the book will be consistent with, like, background and explaining my background and, like, history with the shit and some of the interesting stories, you know, people that I've met and all that other. Which I haven't met a whole lot of people, but so, like, when I tell you, like, I can only suspect that that guy John McAfee, the guy that invented cybersecurity, would possibly likely be aware of some fucking little kid running around causing hell like that at that time, right? Or if not, people within his circle or people that he knew, like, he had, like, and I know this for a fact, some of, like, the most prolific hackers on planet Earth would just come by and visit. Like, they worship the guy. Did they do anything for him? They'd just show up unannounced, and he would be like, "Oh, I want you to meet this guy. He won DEF CON all these years ago," and fucking, I'm not going to get into their names or anything, but, you know, you're aware of the people, I'm sure, and this was like a dream come true for a kid like me, because, like I said, when I was younger, I idolized Kevin Mitnick, you know what I mean? And these guys, without it being him exactly, are like, yeah, we know Kevin, you know, first name basis and all that stuff. Friends with the guy, right? Never had a chance to meet Kevin Mitnick, though, unfortunately. But, that being said, right? So, it's a small world, and that's an even smaller circle, and those people are pretty secretive. But from what I could gather, at least a lot of the guys that I met were, like, white hat hackers and stuff. Like, companies and corporations hire them to, like, try and pen test their without getting into, like, their clients and all that stuff, like their softwares and systems and shit, right? I know, like, publicly the shit's not a secret, so, like, it wouldn't be a problem, but I don't know what their inclination in being associated with me is, so I just keep it a secret for now. I'm sure they don't mind, but I'm not trying to ruffle anybody's feathers, right? Not that I'm like a particularly controversial character or anything, but I do want to make sure that I wouldn't get them in any trouble. Right, Jerry? Hello? All of our frame rates, bro. I don't know if people watch me on YouTube or not. You know, I really don't know. I should pay attention, but I always pay attention to TikTok, but I don't pay, well, sort of. I don't really pay attention to YouTube. YouTube. One word. Fucking, where's the video I posted? If there's even one view, I'll be surprised. Oh, we've got 3 views, right? AI slop. The thing is, like, the reason why I'm kind of on this topic is, like, all this AI slop generated to blah, 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 and, like, I'm trying to find out something similar to keep me afloat for a little while in the midst of all this uncertainty, right? So I'm trying to figure out some kind of thing that would work similar. If I could just try to find a way to pay myself a few $100s a week. And I have yet to discover, because it seems like after the years have passed, right, all this shit, like, the things that I was familiar with have definitely been patched since then, right? So, this spam protection and all that stuff's gotten pretty good over the years, so I'm just trying to piece something together that works as far as, like, what I've seen is mostly bullshit, right? Just to have to feel my way through it, though. Like, there's a way to make money with AI. I just don't know what yet. I haven't figured out how to do it yet. It's one of those things, like, it's the answer is never going to come to you from, like, here's the top 10 ways to make, oh, look, it's Pikel. Fuck it, name him Pikel. Top 10 ways to make money with AI, right? Like, it's never going to come from that. I think, right? Fuck it. Name him Pikel. So I'm starting to write a book instead. I think that's going to happen any quicker, but whatever. Hopefully I don't have to worry about the shit, but... That's why I like farming wild gold so much, because it reminded me of that, you know? It's like, hey, essentially, each one of these primal fires is a few cents each, right? Plus some of the things like the AI automation and all that stuff, like, it's not necessarily it's reputation damning or whatever, but I'm at a point now where probably like, more or less just to see if it does or doesn't work is what I've been dabbling in here lately, right? The idea that like more of the shit's more reputation damning than helpful, and at this point in time, it is something I need to consider before I gallivant into the fucking midst in the wilderness with the shit. The midst of the wilderness, rather. To the midst of the wilderness. Before I do anything that's like, you know what I mean? Like, now would not be the time to be like, oh, I'm going to be a meme coin developer, right? Now would not be the time to gallivant into the realm of meme coin development. AI slop is not too far off, so.
That spell isn't ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. It's not ready yet. I'm out of range. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet.
Fuck it, name him Pykel. Are these guys fucking S tier gamers?
It's still recharging. That's still recharging. Can't use that item. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
Come on now.
I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging.
thing is, when are they gonna get on the ball about like pay a premium and then that way like when are they gonna get to the point where they've got enough compute for AI generated stuff that goes beyond like 9-second clips? You know, that's gonna be
That's
helpful.
still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. It's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
What's the temperature like outside? I had to drive down the road. There was a fucking burst pipe. I had to call the city water department or whatever and get them out here to try and fix the fucking thing. Let me open a window real quick.
I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. It's too far away. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging.
This has me wanting to get this open claw thing up and running though. I have yet to do it. You know, I feel like it's probably helpful, but I don't really have it right now. That's the thing. You know what I mean? I know it's not super costly, but like day-to-day API costs and all that stuff. Server costs, I mean, I know it's not pricey, but I really like, you know, I'm that tight right now.
I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging.
So if I get to the point here soon, which we're getting closer and closer to the day where I just have to sell my home and all that stuff, move across town somewhere slightly, you know, take the money that I have from it and um,
I can't cast
move
that
to
yet.
this side of town, right? Get a cheap apartment and set up shop there at least temporarily, and then I could probably get something like that going. But for now, I'm kind of just uh, day to day, basically, right?
That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. It's not ready yet. I'm out of range. I can't cast that yet.
Because some of that's like there's a lot of trial and error involved in that. Like finding out like there's always some underlying costs, right? So um, I can't sacrifice my last few dollars
That's
bit
still
of bankroll
recharging.
here to figure out the hard way. Oh, well, that wasn't the right
That
way to do
spell
it. You
isn't
need to do
ready
that
yet.
about 2 or 3 more times to figure it out, right? If I don't get it right the first time, then I'm putting myself out on the street sooner than I'm able to fucking do the shit. So I I need to just wait here for a little while, and then if it gets to that point, but if I end up having to sell my home, then I can move somewhere on the other side of town, you know, preferably get away from this fucking place eventually, but get to the other side of town where it's, not to say it's cheaper, but like rent, you know, it's what I have sold for my home and all that. And set up shop there, trying to figure out like if there's not a way I can get just a few $1,000s a month or whatever.
That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. Getting closer. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Remember they used to sell fish at
That
Walmart?
spell isn't ready yet.
Do you remember that? Do they still? There's still some fucking Amish Walmart out there. That sells it. Remember when they used to sell fish at Walmart, guys? Son of a bitch. That's the thing, man. One of my favorite original cryptocurrencies. So as much as like my gospel is for fucking utility with crypto, right? I don't understand how Brave or Bat Token never got as much of attention as it should have, dude. Of all the piece of shit projects out there, you would think, man, if there was just a way for them to try and incorporate something into the Brave browser that allowed them to use it to sell your information, like training data, AI training data or something, you know, because they use the basic attention token works as like a way to purchase ad space, right? On the same topic, right? Through their browser, right? And it's like a Chrome based browser or whatever, Sony Guts, right, or whatever. Uh, if there was a way for them to get a goddamn agentic browser that was able, like, I'm telling you, man, if they could jump into the AI space, I mean, not that I get into like all the fucking this, that, and the other. Like my tried and true is things like Leah, Griffin, and Helium, and Solana, and all that stuff. Um, but I would not to say like, oh, this is a great investment, but I mean, if you appreciate the economy and utility of the fucking thing, dude, the token's awesome, right? If they ever get into the space where they're doing like, they update the Brave browser to an agentic browser that is able to interface with these fucking internet lobsters and all that stuff, intrinsically, whatever, inherently. Uh, if they're able ever to get that all to work, though, the thing is, like I was talking to that guy McKenzie the other day, my arena partner, talking about different business models and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, don't you think it's like horseshit that you pay a certain amount every month to use a platform that then sells your data for twice what you pay them to use their platform? I'm like, yeah, that's horseshit. This roundabout here, there's so much money to be made in AI. You would just think that you need to put your signature on a thing that says you cannot just use my training data for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Because at some point in time, like I've said before, I didn't know how true it was in the past, that like pruned and ready to train AI like data that you could use to train a machine learning thing, right? Was the scarce resource, not the compute required to do it, because the amount of preparation stuff that had to go into prepping the data sets and everything for training, AI training, like real early on, like the scarcest resource was the data, not necessarily the compute, right? We're to the point now where it seems like, and I could be wrong, but that this was like before all this shit here recently, the last few years before all this AI stuff blew up, right? The things that were like in theory kind of, training AI models and all that. Now we're to the point where we've got plenty of compute and we've got a relatively equal amount of training data that can be used to train these models and all that stuff. But there's going to come a time where, based on Moore's law and all that stuff, you would have to have a way, like you always want there to be more data than compute, and then the surplus of data then drives the necessity for more compute, right? So you're only going to use as much as you have. And if you go, well, we've got this stockpile of ready to go AI data that can be used to train these models to do X, Y, and Z, you like put your fucking pitch together to a company that says, well, we have like a whole bunch of money and we want to pay you to put your graphics cards to use or whatever, right? If you can make the case that, well, we have the data, we just don't have the graphics cards, you're basically sitting there like, well, you have an unrefined ore essentially then, like in a gold miner sense, like you've got a load of gold beneath your feet, and you have the money to buy the excavators. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, so the idea that commoditizing training data is going to be a huge industry eventually, because you can basically consider it an asset or a resource, right? That you can put in a proposal to a funder or financier to say, well, if we just had your money, we could use this data that we have stockpiled, right? And we could convert these terabytes of hard drives essentially into millions and millions of dollars, right? And that's, in a relativistic way, I mean, or whatever, like, that is how it works, kind of. Not exactly, but so if you're able to reduce ease of use, the data and preparation side of things, then the process of like pitching a financier or a funder to finance your training protocol or whatever, or your training AI algorithm or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you have the most scarce of the resources. The money, they fucking print the shit all day. You cannot print data, you know what I mean? There's not a printing press for data. There just isn't. So if a company like Bat or Brave or whatever, if they ever adapt their browser to be an agentic-based browser that's able to, at least in some way, shape, or form, harness users' web interactions as training data for AI, like, then you have the opposite of the polar opposite of the printing press. Then, right, you can create as much data as you need, right, and then what amounts to however many gigabytes, it's not a set number or whatever of this. If think of it like oil, you know, like light, sweet, crude. How much do you have to refine it? How much do you have to prune it? You're like, well, this shit will, if you design the platform correctly, will go almost essentially from your desktop to ready to train an AI model with a few steps in between, without all this like, well, we have to have somebody comb through all of it, remove all this other stuff, and like label and all this. Like, if you can automate that process, you know what I mean? Then it becomes like a printing press at some point in time. And since Brave had kind of like an interesting way of using something similar, but for advertising at some point in time, right? You would think they might be the, if it was a project in crypto that could do it, I would say, I would hope, you know, that it would be Brave, really, or Bat rather, in the Brave browser. That's why I keep saying Brave is like one of those few things, like people don't know how good it is. Bat token. It's like pure utility. You cannot argue with anything about it. It's like one of the perfect definitions of like a utility token.
It's not ready. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet.
It just takes one full like loop of explanation and proof that like, well, we had this asset here, data information that we could use to train an AI, and then once that AI is trained, this is the result of it being like basically a printing press for currency or money or whatever, right? Um, yeah, it's as much a commodity as the graphics
That
cards.
spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't
It's just
cast
we're in
that
a
yet.
sense right now that like, well, because the data is so abundant, relatively abundant, and the graphics cards are so scarce, we're looking at the equation from the wrong side. You know, at some point in time, it might be different. You know, and I think you could make just as much money off of simplifying the data, acquiring and gaining the data or whatever, as people do for selling the graphics cards and building
It's still recharging.
the training centers and all that stuff, right?
I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging.
Now, how do you do that is a totally different thing, right? Like privacy being a concern, but there eventually could be some standard developed as far as like, you know how like you're supposed to sanitize data before you store it server side to be like GDRP compliant or whatever the thing is, right? Um, I'm sure there's a process that would make everybody smile eventually, right? Everybody would say, yeah, well, you know. But as much as there would be privacy concerns over that kind of thing, like how much of your information and data are you agreeing to share in the name of training an AI that more or less is not necessary? You know what I mean? You would hope that they would say like, well, we really want to only, um, we really only want the stuff that we can use, not necessarily else other shit, right? Is this guy getting attacked? Are you trying to fight my friend, Mr. Cat? Don't mangle me, bro. Yosef Mangler.
I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging.
But the
I
thing I was
can't
thinking about, like
cast
the
that yet.
gaze data, the thing is, like, I love projects like, what I have a honey miner, a hive miner, honey miner, right? I've got one over there. The fucking
That's still recharging.
decentralized Google Street View, essentially, right?
I
Built
can't
on
cast that
Solana,
yet.
the honey token.
That spell isn't ready yet.
There's no reason that, like, the only reason
That's
why it
still
doesn't work as well as
recharging.
the other thing does is because, well, there's probably not enough of them, and on top of that, it's like you're trying to catch up to something that's already existed for 20 years, or however many years, versus like launching something in parallel with the current state-of-the-art market uh, solution for that kind of problem. You're like, you have a much better chance at that platform becoming the standard if you launch in parallel with your competition versus having to play catch up and then try to surpass them, right? It's like almost not possible. But with this AI training thing, it's like everybody's on even footing currently. Like all these technologies are new. So the idea that a decentralized AI data gathering and pruning service or whatever, or decentralized browser that does all this shit would compete directly with a company trying to do the exact same thing but in a centralized fashion, you know what I mean? The chances of it succeeding are a lot greater since they're in direct competition in parallel with versus trying to play catch up. You get what I'm saying? For however many years it was.
I can't cast that yet. It's not ready. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet.
This fucking odd couple. Oh, look at you. Look, he's the real clean one that likes to fucking tuck his shirt in. He's the fat slob. Goes to shirt with ketchup stain. Goes to work with ketchup stains on his shirt. And look, they're both here farming my fire elementals together. Well, Ebony and Ivory. What an unlikely duo. Get the fuck out of here.
That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging.
Yeah, no, this was a good place. Up until Ollie North had to start selling crack, and then, yeah, now we're in a recession. Thanks a lot, crack.
That spell isn't ready yet. I
Thanks a
can't
lot, Ollie
cast that
North.
yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet.
And once you prove the equation works both ways, then you're not gonna have any problem like saying like, well, we've got this proposal here. We have a, what do you even call it? A treasury of information, like a treasury company that fucking weighted and valued and says, you know, we've assessed the value of the data that we have to be worth this much. Now all we need is like a fraction of that in graphics compute, and we can turn on a printing press. I mean, the shit's happening already, right? It's just it's not viewed that way. You know what I mean? By a lot of people, they think the graphics cards are the scarce part. You know, but all this contention over can you use public access media, blah blah blah. Uh, is it against the law to index every book ever written or whatever, and train your AI on other people's work? You know, like a lot of these legal battles have yet to be settled. We might find at some point in time that there's like some crippling decisions made in the Supreme Court that all this shit's against the law for these AI companies to just train their AIs with
That spell
everybody
isn't
else's
ready yet.
creative works or whatever. You know,
That's
we have
still
not yet seen a lot
recharging.
of these battles really play out in like the higher courts and stuff to that degree that might eventually hinder the process in some way, shape, or form that would make AI data even more valuable than the fucking graphics cards, right?
I can't use that either. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
Say Druid's nice. Is Druid nice? Is Druid being nice? Oh, great. He was trying to play nice and got his fucking salad tossed. Whether or not he doesn't doesn't like that kind of thing. I don't really know.
I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
PvE here, bro. I hate having to deal with this shit.
That's still recharging.
Lame.
I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
Right.
I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
Right.
That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging.
If it gets to that point, now it may never, right? It's like a
I
matter of
can't cast
efficiency.
that
How
yet.
efficiently can you design a system that just creates this data in abundance, right? It's like you might get to the point where you create a system so efficient at it that it never
That's
becomes an issue,
still
but
recharging. That spell
entirely.
isn't ready yet.
But I think Brave would be cool to see Brave do it. It's the best browser on the internet, I think. At least from what I remember. God damn it. It's such a good thing going here.
That's still recharging.
Trying to be fair with this guy because he showed up after, but I made a lot off those spell threads if they do sell. Which I did a heroic earlier. Like, were you guys here?
That spell
I
isn't
forget if you
ready
guys were
yet.
here or not. The guy fucking, some
I
fucking
can't
shitty.
cast that yet.
We
That
do a
spell isn't
heroic
recharging.
Botanica, right? We get one pull into Botanica. He pulls something, like, he kicks me from the group for not blizzarding when he has 2 mobs
I
pulled
can't cast that
after
yet.
we wipe. Despite the fact that we had a shaman in the group, throw down a bunch of fucking totems, and pull like the first half of the entire instance all by himself, right? I'm sitting there
That
thinking
spell
like,
isn't ready yet.
he's like, why didn't you blizzard? Are you gonna blizzard? I'm like, no. And like, say, do you whatever? Like, well, if there's an appropriate number of targets, right? He's like, he wants to get a fucking attitude with me, kick me out of the group. He says, mages are a dime a dozen. Like, whatever, dude. sitting there wiping on the first pull in Botanica. Yeah, no, thank you for kicking me from the kicking me from the group. I go to another group to do Blood Furnace. The first thing they ask is, "Do you have improved Blizzard?" I'm like, "No, I don't have improved Blizzard. It's more of a crutch at this point in time. Once you get a certain amount of gear, being able to do more damage as fire is actually more helpful. Specking for utility, blah blah." I give him like this diatribe of an explanation, right? He goes, "Have you done this before?" I'm like, "Have I done heroic Blood Furnace before? Like, is there? No, I haven't. You know, I just fucking leave at that point in time. I get to a third group finally, Shattered Halls, whatever. It's like one of the hardest heroics you can do, and no one asks any questions, and we burn through it in like 25 minutes and get the fucking thing done. You know, like no improved Blizzard, um, no gear score comparisons or anything. Just, do you know how to play? Do you know where your buttons are on your keyboard? You know what I mean? Do you know how to sheep when you need to? And do you know how to do damage if necessary,
I
right?
can't pass that yet.
Like, yep. Oh, okay then. See, we can be friends. So they have these fucking shit talk me for not being spec something that I don't need to be spec Blizzard. Get into the same argument with people about being spec Arcane. You know, like it's great if you have the support, but if you don't have the support, which I don't necessarily have in my guild, um, not shit I can do about it. You know, sit there be for 2/3 of the fight. But whatever. We'll get there. The guild, or not the guild, the group we did Shattered Halls with did it quicker than my guild does it. Or did it quicker than my guild did it, rather.
I can't pass that yet. That's still recharging.
There's got to be a better place than this. Let's fly the other side real quick. Went from having like a 4 mob spot to just a 1 mob spot, right? What's your name? Smite Priest. Yeah, my only thing is I don't know what that looks like. You know what I mean? It's one of those, well, I'll know what it looks like when someone else does it, but I would like to be there to try and be the one to do it too, if possible. Instead of being like, hey, you know, I know how to spot the thing that I was looking for when someone else has it, right? I want to be the guy to make it, you know,
That's
if
still
I can do it.
recharging.
Or help design it or something. Are you gonna get me off this layer?
I can't pass that yet.
like, but if you can't, you know, it's gonna be the time where they try to weasel in that shit really, where they're like, oh well, what we don't tell you about your advertising data is now we're using it to train AIs, right? And you're like, well, you already agreed to this thing before you knew this other thing existed, and it's kind of either grandfathered in or retroactively there or whatever, you know. So I guess, man, it's kind of a shitty thing, right?
That's still recharging. I can't pass that yet. That's still recharging. I can't pass that yet.
Same fucking guy standing right there in the same exact spot.
That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. Can't use that item. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. It's too far away.
Fuck. Fuck. After I saved your life and everything. Oh well. It's kind of his spot, so.
I can't cast that yet.
God, dude. I have some stories to tell eventually. I haven't gotten to that chapter yet. This is years later, but.
That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging.
Are you serious?
It's not ready. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. It's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet.
Yeah,
That's
sometimes I
still
don't know, man. To
recharging.
me, like just at a cursory glance, the math doesn't math on some of this shit, right? So it's like that's why I try to stay away from meme coins. I'm not saying it isn't, but I don't
I
know
can't
what
cast that.
risk assessment's required for something like Coinbase to
That spell
onboard the
isn't ready
Solana
yet.
meme coin ecosystem, knowing that it's 99% shit. You know what I mean? I'm not like calling their fucking judgment into question or anything, but I have to wonder like, where does the math on that? You know what I mean? Is there some decentralized manner that that's handled so it's like
That's still
it's not necessarily out of their pocketbook if the shit doesn't work. It's like harnessing kind of some of the DeFi elements without necessarily assuming a whole lot of risk on their part. But sometimes I wonder, dude, like some of these things just like the meme coin thing just doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. There, I said it right. Shit doesn't make any sense to me. Period. Almost never. Like I get the novelty of a meme coin, like Dogecoin. There's only room for about like one of those things before it's like, well, you know, the novelty kind of wears off after one. You get what I'm saying? But for like however much of the crypto ecosystem currently consists of fucking meme coins, like what a come on, dude. We all know that shit. We all know that's bullshit. So that's why I'm always like fundamentals. Like it fucking breaks my heart to see things like BAT token not get appreciated to the degree that things like a goddamn meme coin do, you know, or does rather. It's just essentially one of these things like a perfect representation of what we think decentralized currency and like tokenized economy should consist of. And this other thing's just like a fucking an abortion clinic where you pay with food stamps, you know, you're like you can't do better than that.
that spell isn't ready yet. It's not ready. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet.
But if I knew what the thing looked like, I would be able to say whether or not like it is or isn't fundamentally a good idea or not. But for now, just by looking at it, I'm sitting there thinking like, how on earth do you onboard what amounts to like a 99% toxic asset
That spell isn't ready yet.
and somehow make it profitable? You know, and I'll call a spade about it. I just unless they're like, well, really what we did was just kind of like made an interface that incorporates the DeFi. We don't really do this, that, other thing, but like any other way, I'm kind of like, how the fuck did the math doesn't math just based on like, you know what I mean?
That
The
spell
amount of risk
isn't
you're
ready yet.
assuming for that kind of thing is fucking way more risk than it's worth. You know,
That spell isn't ready yet.
it's just like my assessment of it, and I would hate for us all to think that too big to fail mentality for something like Coinbase if something like that does turn out to be, you know, just a complete and total disaster. You know, not that whatever they don't have, you get what I'm saying, but we've all thought that about things in the past, right? Um, yeah, I would hope not. I hope, you know, they know more about the shit than I do, obviously, and I'm not saying that they. I'm just saying that based on not having all the facts at hand, I don't know how it works. It seems weird to think that like assuming that much risk from like an inherently risky asset like meme coins, right? Knowing that the entire ecosystem is like mostly meme coins, right? I say mostly, but enough of it to be concerning. If that makes any sense. It's something to be thankful for, you know, because it does give legitimate tokens that can't get the time of day an opportunity to be traded on a major platform, which I'm appreciative of. But uh, overall, though, you're like, fuck. I'd like to know what the math looked like for it.
I can't tease that out. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
is my... Whatever, may get attacked.
That's
It's
still
tabbed out.
recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't see that yet. That's still recharging.
How do I see where I'm streaming at currently? It's not the right thing. Fucking YouTube. It's view all channels. One account can have multiple channels. Why is it doing this? I never get this part of it. You know what I mean?
It's not
Because
ready
I want to
yet.
see the chat. Like if people are on YouTube watching, I want to see
That spell isn't
what they
ready
have to
yet.
say, if anything, right? There are probably people asking questions at some point in time. Can't imagine they're there right now, but... But I am streaming currently. They showed me this once before, I think. Fuck this shit. Your channel, switch account, and there's no other channel. But it's streaming somewhere, and I only have one YouTube account. um, quite the fucking process here, but I am an American. It makes a difference. It should. It should help in the process. I shouldn't have to call the goddamn consulate to get one of my accounts recovered. You know what I mean? Should be a goddamn international fiasco. Reset my email password.
It's not letting me. That's still recharging. I can't use that either. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
You're on.
That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
I should just call them, really. Hate talking on the phone, though.
I can't cast that yet.
Lovely. I'm gonna pause the stream for now and